People of science, take one. Gosh, what fun.
Professor Ute Frith, could you tell us a bit about your research?
I am a psychologist, or perhaps what I should say, a cognitive neuroscientist. All my life, I've been interested in how the brain produces the mind and how the mind changes over a lifetime.
It's the hardest question in science, that, isn't it? How the brain produces the
I
mind.
believe so. I believe that it's really still a very, very new science, barely more than 100 years old. We're really at the threshold of something that's a new age of a new kind of science.
If we go back right to the start, because you've chosen Alice Lee.
Alice Lee is not a typical hero. Nobody celebrated her. I accidentally found out about her. And she is as good a scientist as any of the others who worked at the time. She was involved in measuring the volume of the skull in order to find out something about what's inside.
I suppose from a modern perspective, it's almost the first thing a modern scientist would think of. Well, I'll start making some measurements. So why is that a radical move?
It was at that time a question, how come that we have, the important men of science? Are they really superior because they have bigger brains? That was a reasonable hypothesis to have. She decided that this is an assumption which we can test. And that's where she had this really ingenious idea to take head measurements of a group of people who were, in fact, anatomists meeting at a conference in Dublin. And she found that there was a group with big heads and a group with small heads. And the very smallest of them all was, in fact, the most distinguished of the anatomists. Everybody agreed.
It's quite bold, isn't it, walking into
Yes.
a conference and measuring the head sizes and essentially challenging these great men of science to say, well, your assumptions do not match the data.
Well, I think she had a lot of support, especially from her supervisor, Carl Pearson. But she remained a low-paid assistant all her life. Still, she did get a publication in the Philosophical Transactions. And this paper is called Data for the Problem of Evolution in Man, a first study of the correlation of the human skull, by Alice Lee, with some assistance from Carl Pearson. And we find a letter from Pearson. She objected to my presenting the paper as purely hers, and I had to compromise the matter as indicated in the title.
I see. So he said publish it just as Alice Lee.
Yes, and she insisted. Still, I want the paper treated as hers.
That's great of Pearson, I suppose, isn't it?
It is really nice. It is really nice.
So Alice Lee for you is so today you describe her as a very good working scientist. She'd be a fellow of the Royal Society probably today, but not this kind of Einstein or a Newton.
She's absolutely not. No, most scientists, most great scientists, are not Newton or Einstein. They do something that is important in answering a critical question at the time. Alice Lee did that, and she was acknowledged. She did get the credit, which I'm very glad for.